Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Raymond Borland and JP Mason, where we'll be talking to Microdot's Brian Cannon. Brian Cannon, welcome back to Glasgow. Does it feel a wee bit like a spiritual home for you?
Yeah, I love Glasgow. I can't come here enough.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I met you was in King Tut's Wawa Hut. Hence the reason JP Mason's sitting right next to you. And there really is a certain energy about places like that, isn't there?
What, Tuts or Glasgow generally?
Tuts and Glasgow.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, Glasgow has always reminded me of Liverpool, which I'm a big fan of as well. You know, very, very similar cities, very gritty, working class, honest, if you like, you know. And yeah, I just love it here. And same, yeah, Tuts, what a place. Did the Q&A there for obvious reasons. And yeah, legendary, iconic venue.
It is, and I love having conversations with yourself, JP, about Tuts, and the Tuts of today.
Maybe not at 12:30 on a Thursday.
We would if we were allowed.
I know.
Let's be honest, we would speak for a whole hour if we were allowed. But today there is going to be a wee focus on that, Brian, because you brought along something which is a world premiere. This is an exclusive.
It is.
Right in front of us. Talk us through it.
Well, what we've got here is it's an exclusive insofar as it's an unboxing of the new 30th anniversary, definitely maybe. This is the 4x vinyl set. And whilst I've posted pictures of all the interior bits, I think a lot of people can't get their head around it because they've not been coming from a vinyl culture in the past, so they don't really understand what the inner bags are, or what they just think the prints or posters or something. So we'll just go through it here then. So this is obviously the cover, which is, it's a Photoshop version of the original sleeve. We didn't have an empty room shot. That's not a single shot, that's a composite of all different shots taken on the day in 1994. But I think where it gets interesting is when you get to this, which is the room where pretty much it was recorded at Sawmill Studio in Cornwall. And we went back there this year. I took this photograph. Noel came along to give a bit of direction, which was great. And on the back is the other studio that we recorded it in, which is Mona Valley in Wales, where we shot the sleeve for Supersonic. And they aborted those sessions because they weren't certainly right. Obviously there's outtakes from both studios contained within this. That's kind of the point of this box set. But I think where it gets interesting further is on the inner bags that I mentioned. That there was the actual sign outside of Tuts, which in 2000, which would mark the 10-year anniversary of the venue, this was presented to Oasis and there's a brass plaque on it. Now, I'll send you the picture, which I'm sure you're going to drop in now, just to show you how big that thing actually is. It doesn't do it justice on that. But yeah, that's in storage at Oasis's lockup near just outside of London. And it was Noel's idea. I was having a meeting. I didn't even know this thing existed, let alone that it had been awarded to Oasis. And Noel said, "Oh, because we were like," I came up with the idea to have all these Oasis-based artifacts on the other side. Like it's almost supposed to be like a high-end auction. I used to have a catalogue of valuable artifacts. Well, these bits now I kind of like that. I'm 30 years old and associated with this iconic band, but I didn't know this existed. So that was entirely Noel's idea to include that. On the back side of that one is the original logo, because none of this was done digitally in 1994. That's my handwriting. You can say I did loads of. I struggled with it. I still do. But that was the but that was the original that went off to the printers, and I'll just flick through the other bits.
How does that make you feel, JP, seeing that item there, which has gone into Oasis folklore?
Well, it's good to know that it's still around, because I was wondering if they didn't exist in their world anymore, but it's cool that they've still got it, and that it means enough for them to put it on the anniversary edition of their debut record. So it shows that they still remember that fondly, and how mad that night was. When you just think about the stars aligning and everything that happened that night, the fact that there's footage of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know from doing the Tuts archive at the moment how many gigs have happened at King Tuts, and there's no many from the 90s that you'll have actual footage from. So to be able to actually see them on stage, and because there's still some people that don't think that it happened,
which is all set up.
Yeah, it was set up or whatever. But why would you go to that that level of
don't make any sense.
No,
that conspiracy theory does not make any sense.
It doesn't really at all. But yeah, like I said, seeing that sign in the album, I obviously know how special a venue it is, but that kind of puts the rubber stamp on it, doesn't it?
You need to start doing dark blue t-shirts with gold writing on them.
Yeah.
JP.
It'd be nice if you loaned it to use next year, wouldn't it? When you
Oh, the
own it,
sign?
put it on display outside. That'd be nice.
For the 35th anniversary, yeah.
A lot of people getting their photographs taken from that. So what else you got for us here?
Right, well, and the other bits, again, they're all originals. That was the ticket for the first gig they played after the record came out, which was in Wales, at Buckley Tivoli. I love this ticket because of the old ones. This looks like it's just like from a garden fete or something.
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
like a
really
concrete
thick card. And if you look at it, well, it's been printed by what's called letterpress, where they've actually, you know, the hot metal, where you're literally running it off, because you can see it's almost like embossed there. And that's my favourite ticket of all the old gigs. And it just so happened to be the first gig after the record came out. This was from the Leeds Irish Centre, which was, I think, a fortnight after the record came out, or before, or there.
Started to listen up.
Yeah, that's mad.
First song in the set.
I think they only played it twice. But I think it's about twice they played it back then.
Right.
And this, Phil Smith, the roadie who wrote this out, you'll notice he spelt alcohol wrong. Cigarettes and alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah.
But that night was the first night that they ever saw the cover for Definitely Maybe, because I took it with me.
Right.
And I've still got that copy. And if you look at the 2014 re-release, we had to scan the original because they'd lost the artwork. Can you imagine that? They've lost the artwork for Definitely Maybe. So the 2014 release is a scan of the Creation Records release that I took to that gig to show them. So that's in a bank vault now, as you can imagine. And it's never been played either, that copy. So that's that.
I'm looking at the tape still attached.
I know. See, just on the ticket, you know what stands out to me about that? It says the venue's the Tivoli, and it says the Tivoli Presents. So that's before promoters have jumped on it.
Yeah.
Because obviously it would say the promoter names company or whatever, but that's just the venue that's putting them on. So it's so early in their career.
This one here is the first ever piece of Oasis merchandise. Now, this T-shirt was re-released, obviously, just shortly after, and the letters were knocked out white. You must have seen that. But these ones with the white outline, that was the first one. And back in, I got given that T-shirt, that's my T-shirt, I got given that T-shirt the night that they played the Hop and Grape in Manchester before, in 93 that was, and Bonehead was the merchandise guy. After the gig, he would come off the stage and start selling the T-shirts. And nobody knows exactly how many of those there are, but there can't be more than a couple of hundred, I wouldn't have thought. Look, there's a joint hole in it there.
I was going to say
Are these the ones that you sold outside Old Trafford?
No. That was Brian Robson testimonial T-shirts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Still got one of them?
No, I am not.
Memory's got one.
Just on that, the swirl of the Union Jack, is it true that was a political statement by Noel saying the UK is going down the toilet path?
It is. I mean, that was done before that was the only thing I didn't do in the 90s. That was done by a guy called Tony French, who sort of preceded me. He was a graphic designer there, you.
Yeah, he sat beside Noel in school, I think.
Right.
And one of them's become a thing in touch. People get their picture taken next to it now.
It was Tony.
Yeah.
It was Tony sent it.
That's right.
And so he did that, and then I got involved and sort of took it over. But yeah, it was the fact that that's it. It's going down the plug or the toilet, whatever you want to say. The backside of that is that was my pass. It's all bits and bobs of mine. All this is in. We're from self-explanatory, isn't it? You know, I just think that presented in this sort of style, it is like that sort of, the old papyrus from the pharaohs or something, isn't it? And then this looks great. And
it's amazing.
That's the rig that he used to record Definitely Maybe with. I don't know that guitar was the one he wrote Supersonic on, I think, or he slid away. It's the one that Johnny Marr gave him.
Right.
And I was in his studio, and I noticed when we went to photograph this, because we shot this in Noel's studio in London, that there's a couple of pictures of also, there's not one single reference to Oasis or Hi-Fi Birds. It was all like Pistols, Led Zeppelin, Beatles. But he had me print that off for him, and I believe he said that's the only Oasis thing in there. And I actually said to him, do you want it with or without the logo? He said, no, with the logo.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And that guitar that appeared on the front is Supersonic as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was Liam's tambourine from back in the day, which was, every time there's a tambourine on any Oasis record ever, it's that tambourine, and they've still got it. And that was in the storage with the King Tut sign.
And that's been for every Oasis song, ever since The day dot.
That's what it says on it. Purchased in Manchester in 1994, appears on the cover of Supersonic, has been played on every, in capital letters, Oasis track ever, in capital letters, NG.
That's like a pair of Maradona.
Look how bashed up it is.
I know
It's a tape.
some of the little symbols are missing.
Aye.
Amazing.
Now, all this happened, you went down there, you met up with Noel,
Uh-huh.
and all this happened obviously before the big announcement that we'll get stuck into.
Yeah.
And there was no inkling, Brian,
No.
at that time that this was going to happen.
No, in fact, if you'd have asked me then, I'd have said definitely no chance. It's not happening.
I did try, I did ask, and he was adamant, no idea.
I had no idea. I mean, why would they tell me that? I had no part in the actual launch of the reunion. So, you tell as few people as possible, obviously. So I genuinely didn't know, and I had no inkling that it was coming.
Even with all the hype, you were still convinced it wasn't. It was going to be something else.
I did actually say to somebody who works in a shop in Manchester that if Oasis announced they're going to reform on Tuesday, I'll run the length of Deansgate naked.
Oh, you need to say it.
No, I've already said it after the event. I'm not doing it.
That's why you've been getting fit, Brian.
That's it.
Yeah. We'll talk a wee bit about Oasis, definitely maybe in particular, because I'm looking at that handwriting. Yeah. How does it feel that your handwriting is now part of music folklore? I used to buy 100 greatest album books and all that kind of stuff. Your handwriting's in, not just your designs, Brian. Yeah. How does that feel?
It's amazing. I mean, it's everything it means everything to me. And it still does, just to be involved with this again. It just means the world to me. And the buzz hasn't worn off. It's not like I've become complacent with age or, it's still incredible. And, I think the day it's not, I'll have to give my head a wobble because it would never happen because it means everything to me. Not just this, all the other work I've done as well with the Verve and all the other bands. It's a lifetime's worth of work and it's what I set out to do from the get-go. So, I think it's the most remarkable bit. It's not so much the work itself, but just like a working class kid from Wigan with no connections whatsoever. Nobody in the family or friends or anybody had any connection to the music business. I had no money, I come from a low-income family. I had no equipment, no experience, no nothing, and I set out to design sleeves for the biggest bands of my generation, and I actually pulled it off. That's what blows my mind. I look back on it sometimes and I have to pinch myself. Wow, I actually did it. I think it's an incredible story.
What I love. When was it we went down to Salford? Now was it a year or 2 years ago?
It was 22.
22.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, it was
November 23rd, 22.
Yeah.
Lee's birthday.
Incredible.
But that's how we all met.
Yeah.
So but it wasn't 22. It was 21.
Mm-hmm. Talk us through it.
Well, so
it was 20. It was 2.
No. It was. Hold on.
It was 22.
Checks notes.
It was 22. Sorry, you're right. It was Mark.
Don't argue with Brian.
I had the idea of 21.
Oh, right.
So I had November 21. I said to Brian, Brian, you should come to Scotland. You always do these Q&As down south. Nothing ever happens in Scotland. She's like, right, sort it. And I was like, okay then. So
there's a man to do it.
So somehow, I can't remember the conversation, but we agreed it was King Tut's. So I got in touch with King Tut's, which when we come up, met you, and then I wanted to get some video made, and you put me in touch with yourself, and that's it. We're here today, and it's all because of Brian. So we've all met because of Brian.
But how great is it though, Brian, that terrace culture, football, music, it does bring people together, doesn't it? Absolutely.
And I think I've been doing a lot of interviews recently about all this phenomenon, the Oasis thing, and I think a lot of people miss that, just the togetherness. And the simile I sort of bring about is just like when punk happened and the media sort of spread the narrative that, if you're into punk, it's all about being violent and spitting at each other and all that shit. When in actual fact, it was the antithesis of that. It was about being creative and individual, And the same things happen with Oasis, I think. The media representation, especially these days. I mean, there's been a massive backlash since the reunion about people, going over this lad culture, the faintly right-wing. Oasis, right-wing. I mean, what the? I just don't get that at all. And I had forgotten, actually, if you look back to the Nebworth film, which I watched and I thoroughly enjoyed, it's almost like a hippie festival when you look back at it. And people and there was virtually no trouble that day. 250,000 people, but 10 arrests all weekend or something. Yeah. I mean, it's just remarkable. So I think, the whole thing about Oasis was bringing people together, not just, like you say, all the subcultures that you just mentioned there, people with like a common belief and, you know, common ground and common mentality getting together for the better good of everybody, really. And I think it's a different time. I mean, there's no point, I don't moan about the internet, oh, it's better before. I don't say my granddad around like that. And I'm not saying it's better or worse, because it's just the way it is now. But it was a different time. Better or worse, that's up to the individual to decide. But it seemed to be like a more innocent time, generally, I think. And yeah, it was wonderful. And all the bands I worked with, the 90s in particular was a remarkable time. It was a transitional period as well, if you think about it. It was just the internet was taking off. And a lot of things changed. Some for the better, some not for the better, but you know, that's just the way it is, isn't it? But yeah, I remember it with very fond memories.
There's something Noel says at the end of Supersonic when he's talking over a bit of footage of them walking out on the stage at Nebworth, and he's like talking about that time, and he's like, it'll never happen again.
No.
And he's like, you're talking about a time before the internet, before social media, all of that, and he's like, the thing that he said that stood out to me was things meant more. Mm-hmm. 3 words, yeah. Things meant more, and it was so powerful. That was the thing that I took away from that documentary, which was an amazing documentary.
It was. I'll tell you what was amazing, sorry to interrupt there before I forget, the Nebworth thing, but you said with the social media, this, when you think about this is mind-blowing. John Squire appeared on stage during Champagne Supernova, and the audience the second night didn't know.
That's mad.
It was going to come on. Can you imagine that?
That's incredible, when you think
about that.
Yeah.
The people who were there the second night were surprised when he came on the stage because they didn't know he'd been on the night before.
That might have happened with Johnny Marr at Barrowland.
It did.
I can't remember what. I think I went. There was 2 nights, and I went the first night, and obviously he came out for Champagne.
Yeah, they mucked it up.
And they mucked up. They had to start again. Yeah.
But you're right. See that passing the word on, the word of mouth thing. You're right. It won't happen again. I remember introducing my mate to that album. We were both paper boys, and we both had Walkmans to do our rounds, and I gave him the tape, listening to that, mate. Yeah. And he, to this day, we're still Oasis fans. But that's how you passed it. You passed the tape. Yeah. You know, you spoke about it rather than just a campaign online and social media, which, by the way, has to be embraced. But you're right. I don't think it was a phenomenon that we'll never see again. But when I went to Salford and I watched a presentation down there with Raymond, one thing I loved was the influence of your old fella. Uh-huh. So your dad appears on covers, Master Plan, some might say, things like that. And he was something of an artist himself. So I loved the fact that you reinvigorated that recently on Microdot as well, Brian. His artwork.
Oh, yeah. I put out a T-shirt with a drawing that he did when he was 15. Mm-hmm. It was done in 1940, right, when he was born in 1925. And it's like a graphic piece of like this outline line drawing of a series of elephants, not just a drawing. Do you know what I mean? It's just a very graphic piece, like a repeat pattern, like you see on ceramics or wallpaper or something. And it's been sat in a drawer for 80 years. And he passed away a few years back. And I just thought I want to get into doing more Microdot branded stuff. And I just thought it'd be a great starting point. It's almost like this is where it came from in the first place. So this way precedes anything to do with any of his music was involved in. This is a piece of my dad's work that he did when he was 15 as well, not like when he was an adult. So that's where that idea came from. So yeah, God bless him.
Did he get to see your work in action?
Oh yeah, well he was on the front cover of, some might say. He's pushing
the wheelbarrow, right?
You know what I mean?
He made that wheelbarrow with the fish in it out of the sink.
I think that may be my favourite Oasis song, to be honest.
It's my favourite Oasis, well, one of my favourite Oasis songs, but certainly my favourite Oasis cover. But he was in his 70s when he did that, because he was like 90 odd when he died.
Is it the Nebworth one? Liam dedicates this one's for Brian's mum. Yeah,
because she'd had a stroke, and that was the second night, wasn't it? Because she had a stroke the day before, and I couldn't get out. I was there and couldn't get up. And I told Liam, and he'd obviously met her because he was on the cover, some might say as well. So he dedicated, some might say, during the song, live at Nebworth.
During it, so it's like halfway through it. This one's for Brian's mum.
Wow! Yeah, if you listen to it, you can hear
amazing.
It. Yeah.
I'm going to take you back to 1990, Brian, because you mentioned briefly that you had been doing some bootleg T-shirts for the Brian Robson testimonial. Talk us through that.
What happened was, I think I just started Microdot in 1990, and me and my pals, we were all skint. This is way before the Verve or Oasis or any of that malarkey. And we were just always trying to think of ways of making money, basically, and keep out of gainful employment. And John Platt, who's a big Man United fan, told me that it was dead quick how it happened as well. I don't know what day of the week the match was on, but say it was Tuesday or Wednesday. We only had this idea on the Monday. And we thought we'd come up with some bootleg T-shirts, and nobody was doing it at the time. And I mean, nobody. We got there, we didn't. Mate of mine, Tony Khan, his dad had a market stall. He sourced the T-shirts. I got some screen printing done. We just got a picture at the Daily Mirror of a picture of Brian Robson. Got John had his signature. We got that on there. Manchester United, Glasgow Celtic, Old Trafford, printed on the back. Turned up outside the ground, £5 a piece, and we had about 100 of them done, I think. And there's nobody else doing it, because we later went back to do the...
Did you sell them all?
Oh, yeah. On the back of that, we went back to the Sir Matt Busby testimonial, but everybody got onto it then, and we didn't sell any. But this one here, so just a black and white shirt, and before the game, nobody bought one, because nobody wants to go into the game, do they? We thought, we've really dropped a bollock here, we're going to have to pay for it, because we got it all on tick as well, so we didn't have any money to pay for it. But after the match, they went like hotcakes. And in 1990, I'm sure of it, that still had pound notes in Scotland, but we didn't have them in England, so you weren't used to pound notes. So people, the Celtic people, were buying T-shirts off us for £1 because it was dark, we didn't notice. And then once we twigged it, we were giving them back to English people as £5 changes in the tenors. But yeah, we sold a lot. And
I want one of these, JP. You thinking?
You ever seen them about?
No one knows it's a microdot. That's what it is.
It was probably because we. Do you know what we were doing T-shirts at raves at that time. It was involved in like an illegal rave set up called Revenge, and I did all the flyers. We did T-shirts for that. So that's where we had some experience in having them printed. But that was the first football-related thing, and there was no. I mean, literally, we outside the ground, nobody else was doing it. And by the time it was the Sir Matt Busby testimonial against the Republic of Ireland or whatever, everybody was at it. And we did sell any.
I'm going to jump in here about bootlegging, right? Because it wasn't actually after the Reformation, but recently my big brother dug out all these old bootleg T-shirts from back in the day. He went to loads of Oasis gigs, early doors, and they were selling them like for £200 and everything. Right? And this was bootlegs.
Yeah.
How do you feel when people take your Oasis logo and bootleg that into something else?
Well, imitation is the greatest form of flattery, isn't it? And you get a pass, obviously. But no, it's been done to death, hasn't it? And yeah, what a. Well, I tell you what was amazing when they announced the night before they were announced we're getting back together. They just flashed up, didn't it? Just the date in that box.
Yeah.
Now that's branding, man. That everybody in the world knew exactly what it meant. It was just some numbers in a box like that. So yeah, I'm made up with it.
Shows you the strength of the brand, and I'm so glad they went back to the original logo brand.
Oh, yes.
Because it's never been the same. When it changed, basically in the 2000s. That's when it all changed.
Yeah, I've got
everything changed at that point.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't do the artwork. Owen Morris wasn't producing the records. Noel wasn't even writing all the songs. It was all changed at the office. So it went then, and it's sort of just gradually sort of worked its way back in.
Well, that's it. The first 3 albums, you can't really pick a bad song. But after that, the albums, I don't like that one. That one's good. Don't like that one.
They're patchy.
Aye.
But you're talking about the first 3 albums. I always think the first 4.
Yeah,
because
I
do. I know it was a compilation, but when you've got songs of the quality of the Master Plan and Aqueduct and so many others, they should have had 4 massive standalone albums, Brian. Did anyone ever say to Noel, or was he just so fixed in his own kind of mind at that stage, listen mate, you shouldn't be putting these on the B-side? Is that part of the allure of Oasis?
That was never even in anybody's mind. He was like a machine at the time, wasn't he? He was that prolific. I mean, all the bands run out of steam after the first album because they've had 3 or 4 years to write the first one. Then come the second one, they run out of ideas. He had 3 in the bag to begin with, pretty much. I remember when I was at the recordings of Morning Glory, and he basically played more or less being out to me on an acoustic guitar, and that was before they'd finished Morning Glory. So this concept of I'll save that didn't come into it. He was just knocking it out as they came out.
Well, sure, they were playing all around the world.
in that rehearsal in
rehearsals,
92.
but it wasn't ready until they had the budget for the orchestra.
Yeah. And was there not chat of that being a Eurovision Song Contest song?
I've never heard that before.
All around the world.
Is that right?
I don't know. I might have misheard or picked up something, but no, I think I'm pretty sure that.
What I loved as well about Oasis in the early days is they attached themselves, Brian, to Man City. When Man City were not cool, they weren't the big, massive brand that they are now globally. But they were quite happy to pose in the Man City jerseys.
And they made them cool.
They did.
Yeah, well, I was asked about the main. I did an interview for Monday on magazine the other day about specifically the main road gig, and people forget. Man City, like you said, we're not the Man City of today, and Main Road is definitely not the Etihad Stadium. You know what I mean? We were in the VIP bar in the top of the kit place. It was like a working men's club in there. Noddy Older was sat there. It was something else. People were dancing on the roof as well. It was like the Strange Ways riots.
Brilliant.
It was. And we were that high up in the stand, you could see over the other stand into the City of Manchester. Pretty much same view as they had of Glasgow last weekend at the derby, because we were right high up and could see over the... It was fantastic. But, what a weekend that was. And, you're right, the City weren't cool at all, but they were City's fans, And they didn't play at Main Road because it was some all singing, all dancing, glitzy stadium, because they went there as kids watching football,
I love that. And I'm a massive Roses fan as well, and JP's a Man U fan, as well as Celtic, of course. And there was that collaboration between Adidas, Man United and the Stone Roses. I'm going to throw it out there, Brian. When are we going to see Celtic, Adidas and Microdot collaborating? When's this happening?
Well, you've got my number. I'm sure you can pass it on to them. I'd be up for that, of course I would.
That'd be amazing, because there's so many creative minds that support Celtic, and I don't think we tap into them as often as we should.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame, actually, when you get entities as big as Celtic or even Oasis or all, there's a disconnect between the organisation and the grassroots fans sometimes, I think. And that's a shame, that. Without
a doubt. You mentioned the derby. That was on a bucket list. Now, as well as meeting Raymond, you've been coming up to Celtic Park fairly regularly to watch Celtic with Raymond, and the Glasgow derby was something you wanted to do. Talk us through your experience. Was it everything you imagined it would be?
Oh yeah, and more. Just everything about. I mean, the thing that blew me away the most is an atmosphere like I've never seen before, and I've been watching football all my life, effectively. But to have that atmosphere with no away fans in the ground is something else. And it's a league game. I mean, I know it's obviously against Rangers, but at the beginning of the season, so it's not like it's whoever wins this is going to win the league. You know what I mean? But it was like the World Cup final almost, and it was berserk. And bang on the final whistle, Roll With It came out the speakers, and the whole ground was singing.
I never even thought about that. And you've been there. That's
amazing. But the whole ground was singing it. Not just like the Green Brigade or one colour. The whole fucking ground was singing it. I was like, wow.
That's a hark back to the 6-2 game when Celtic beat Rangers 6-2 in 2000, right. And Noel was there.
Right.
And the camera went to Noel at the end, and he's got the Celtic scarf on and Roll With It. And the camera was filming Noel from the other side of the ground was actually shaking, bouncing, because the bounce in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I seen a comment, somebody was commenting on the structure of Celtic because it was shaking. I'm like, no, it's the camera, because everybody's
bouncing.
There needs a bit of bounce in a structure like that.
Well, anyway, that's it. I was like, I can't believe this guy's saying this.
See, you're talking about the whole stadium being Celtic fans.
Yeah.
Sunday was great, but the game that sticks out for so many people is the nighttime game, which was the first time that ever happened, where it was the full stadium, and we beat them 3-0 that night. And the atmosphere that night, Celtic got slagged for getting the Champions League lights. So we've got like these fancy lights that cost like £1.5–2 million or whatever, and it's all like, oh, you've got your fancy lights, but you've not got the Champions League. But that night, they switched the whole stadium in darkness and then had the huddle in green. So the Rangers players are all standing in darkness, just like, what's going on here? Like, there was guys making their debut for Rangers that night that had never kicked the ball for them really at all. Like Ahmed Diallo, he played that night. He must have just been like,
spooked.
I'm in the wrong film here.
Yeah.
We're about to get our arses handed to us, and they did. Spectacularly.
No, but I love when the likes of yourself comes up to Celtic Park and you see obviously Christoph Waltz, we spoke about it earlier on, members of Primal Scream were there at the weekend as well. It's just great to see that. But when we're talking about Microdot, we need to talk about the Verve.
Oh yeah.
We need to speak about like your local band, right, who came good, and basically it was a chance meeting between yourself and Richard Ashcroft at a party. Talk us through that and where it went to the heights of the homecoming gig.
Well, people presume, because I'm from Wigan like they are, well, most of them are, we were mates since time, but we weren't, because Richard's, how is he, 5 or 6 years younger than me? And when you're 23, that's a big gap, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I met him purely by chance at a party held by my ex-girlfriend who used to go to the same sixth form college as them. And I didn't see. I mean, just chatting, I just found him interesting. He was a lot younger than me, and I didn't see him again for a few years. And I bumped into him on a petrol station at 6 o'clock in the morning when I'd been out buying a pint of milk. And they'd just been signed, and he remembered me, and he remembered a conversation that we'd had at that party back then that I designed record sleeves, because his quote was, you know, he found it unusual that somebody set out to design record sleeves. Most young lads will be footballers, DJs, rock stars, but you set out to design record sleeves. It stuck in his head. And I said, yeah. And he said to me on the petrol station, we've just been signed, you know, if you want to do the artwork, you're on. I thought, wow. Which was great, because this is after the Brian Robson thing, but I was still just a skint. So any work would have been great, you know. And so the first thing I had to do was go to London and convince Virgin Records, because even though they were put out by Hut, that's like a subsidiary of Virgin. You know, they used to do back then, didn't they? Try and pretend to be an indie, but it's really a major label. And Virgin were terrified. They were horrified that this new signing, because this is in the days when people used to spend a fortune. Record companies used to spend a fortune on bands. That some guy that Richards met at a party in Wigan, he wanted to do the artwork because they had some London agency lined up. But anyway, I did the first sleeve, and I remember going into Virgin with it when it was finished, vindicated, you know, because it did look amazing. And like, okay, you've got the gig now. So that was and. Working with the Verve, I did everything that they released in the 90s, which was pretty much the whole career, because they reformed to that one album form. Yeah. Way down the track. I didn't do that. But that's how I tended to work with bands then. You know, I became part of the project. The same with Oasis, I did everything they released in the 90s. It wasn't just like I was in and out, here and there, doing a bit of work. I became part of the fabric of the whole thing.
Well, that's it. It wasn't just sleeves, it was stuff getting mailed out, it was merchandise.
I mean, with the Verve early doors, I was driving a tour bus.
Before they were the Verve, because they were just Verve, wasn't it? Yeah.
93 tour. I remember I love driving. I love going on driving holidays, but one of my greatest driving memories ever was in Scotland. We played at Newcastle, and they were playing Edinburgh Music Box, I think it was called, the night after. So they drive up.
That's now the Liquid Room.
Yeah,
that's up. Oh, is it?
Up. It's quite. That part of Scotland was quite flat, in it. You could see sort of Edinburgh in the distance. Yeah. And the sun's setting. We had a Volkswagen LT with aircraft seats in it. The band all in the back watching Rolling Stones VHS on the video, and I'm driving. I thought, this is it, man. And the only reason I was driving, the only reason I was driving the tour bus was because I was the only one who was over 25 who could get insured. Right, and that was it. You know, so that was my level of involvement. It wasn't just designing the record sleeves. It was, and that was something else. So to go from that to the gig at Hay Hall that you mentioned just then.
You played instruments with Oasis.
I've been on stage with the Verve doing hand claps at Clapham Grand.
You drove the car in Shaker Maker video.
There's so many.
His footsteps.
It was your car.
All around my car. No,
end of all around the world.
My footsteps.
Footsteps.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love that song. I know it's not a popular. Well, it is, but Be Here Now is not really considered to be.
I think it's a great.
So is it?
See, for me, JSP, I think as a clutch of songs, if you look at all the songs, the album tracks, the B-sides, you look at it in its entirety, it's a great collection of songs. Some of the B-sides are brilliant from that era.
I think it just gets slagged because they had so many guitar tracks, and then they just threw everything at it, didn't they? It was just one of those.
But did they come out with something big because they were so massive themselves, didn't
they? Do you know, see when I first got Be Here Now, I put it on, right? And I used to have my speakers on my wall. I loved cranking it up, right? I used to have it dead loud. And when you heard that playing, I looked out my window. I actually looked out looking for this low-flying plane.
The biggest fright I ever got, Stone Roses, was that hidden track on Set and Coming. I had no idea it was on there. And then it was track 90 or track 99? Were you aware of that? Hidden track?
But I think I would Be Here Now as well. That's the first time I saw Oasis, was the 97 Be Here Now tour in Newcastle with Travis supporting. Same night as Newcastle beat Barcelona.
I was there.
Yeah,
3-1 with it.
Was that when they wore the top?
He came on stage and you were at that? I was in the seats at the back. Me and my mate, we got a bus down for Scotland. It was like a bus and ticket deal that you got. And our bus got a flat on the way down, and my mate was almost in tears because he thought we weren't going to make the gig. And I was like, think positive, it'll be alright. We were on the side of the motorway for a good hour, and then eventually we all got changed, got down, got in for Travis, and then saw Oasis. And
by the way, that's a really iconic shot, and it's a cracking jersey of Liam wearing, the Newcastle. But I could not wear the football jersey of an opposing team. I couldn't do that, JP. In Scotland.
Well, I don't know. I know where he's coming from with that one though, because There's no big rivalry between City or Newcastle. There wasn't then, and Newcastle fan. He knew what that would mean to those fans.
Oh, aye.
You know
the
what I mean?
place
It's not
went bananas.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And that match, I mean, we watched it in the pub before we went to the game. It was unbelievable. They beat Barcelona. Was it 3-1?
3-2, I think. And no, they announced the score because it obviously, again, pre-internet, the crowd at the gig, no idea what's going on. They'd all been watching it on the screens in the lobby, and nobody watched Travis. No. Travis played to about 200 people or something in an arena, and then they all went in. So then Liam came out and went, "It's 1-0, by the way." Boys went, and then Noel goes, "It's 2-0." So they were 2 or 3-0 up, I think, against Newcastle. But what a time!
Yeah.
Remember the South End gig, Live by the Sea?
Oh, remember that on cassette?
You were, geez, you were
actually there.
With Bobby Gillespie.
Really?
Yeah. We ended up at some gangsters' flat in South End after the show. Me, Liam, and Bobby Gillespie. Yeah. Incredible time.
When's the book coming out, Brian?
When the story's finished, it's still going.
Man, I absolutely are.
What a book, by the way, that.
Can you imagine?
I know. It's incredible.
Verve was it. Anyway, it was over Hale. That culmination of that Verve journey, they obviously carried on going after Hale, but that was it for me. And the amazing thing about that gig is one of the best gigs I've ever seen. Normally when you build a gig like that in a venue, there is no infrastructure. They always milk it by at least 2 gigs.
Yeah.
They played one night. They could have sold it out 4 times anyway. And everybody there knew this is it. And the place went f***ing bananas. And I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And it was my birthday. And it was, our hometown. It was the pinnacle of a lot of hard work was that. It was something else.
I'm going to take one moment from your work with the Verve, probably selfishly, because it's my favourite sleeve that you did with them. And it's This Is Music, right? Yeah. With the sandwich board.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just wondering about how you come up with that concept. Is it something to do with the lyrics? Is it a conversation you have with Richard Ashcroft?
That a lot of that was down to Richard, that one. But the way I would work was always the same but different in each case. If you see. The only same bits was I would insist on, I'd have to listen to the music. I heard stories back then, designers doing sleeves. I mean, I think Peter Savland heard Unknown Pleasures when he did the sleeve, That could be true. I'm not sure it is or not. But I would always have to listen to the music, and I would always ask for a lyric sheet. And, part of this driving the bus or hanging about them, that was like a part of the plan to just immerse myself as much as possible in the culture of any given band I was working with. Because the best work I ever did was for the bands I spent most time with. I think it's obvious. I looked at it like I was some sort of bespoke tailor making you a suit. You've got to measure the person first before you can cut the cloth. And it's the same sort of process. So, but dependent on the record, with Oasis, I'd speak pretty much solely with Noel, and with the Verve, it'd be solely with Richard. And sometimes they'd have quite strong ideas like that. This Is Music, that kind of came from Richard, but there was other ones with like She's a Superstar, the Neon Sign of the River, that was entirely mine. With Oasis, Roll With It, Noel didn't have any ideas. Some might say that was his idea, all the lyrics. So it was always communication with whoever the creative person was in each band.
Did you ever have, well in advance, any ideas that you'd thought of, and then when it was time to do a sleeve, I'm going to use that?
No, I couldn't do that because the whole point to it was the sleeve was specific to the record. I didn't, I've got an idea, how about we use that? No, it's like, okay, here's the record, well, what ideas can we come up with? I mean, I did have one idea, I don't know, no, if I won't mention it, just in case it does get used. We'll come back to that one. But I've got one in the boiler I'd love to do. But no, not really, no. I tended to do them on order, as it were, rather than having, stuff stored up.
And it's not just past bands. Recently, you done Tim's listening party
albums. Yeah, and the Lathams number 1 album. That was good to work on that.
So you're still going?
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, I get asked all the time, and I'm busy doing a lot of other stuff. So these days, it's only if I'm really into the project. It always was, though. Apart from the beginning when I was skimping, I wouldn't work with anybody. But and it's not even about the money, because very few bands actually have any money these days either. It's like, unless you flying high, I don't understand. I just do not get how bands can make a living anymore. I don't say you've transitioned from that. We're not signed and we don't have any records out to the big bit. There is no middle bit anymore, is there? You know, because nobody sells records. You know, the revenue from streaming is a pittance, and you've got to be massive to get anything from that. So the only way you can make any money is by gig tickets and merchandise. And unless you're selling like relatively large gigs and lots of T-shirts, how do you do it? I don't understand. So the first thing that got cut, this started way back. This started, you know, when digital started taking over, was the marketing budgets would be cut, the artwork budgets would go from... I mean, I was getting paid more in 1988 than I would do now. Literally. You know, that's 36 years ago, is it? You know, I mean, when I first started, I could expect to get, in 1988, brand new out of college, I get 1,200 quid for a single. I mean, a band offered me 1,200 quid for a single, I'd be surprised that they had that kind of money, you know.
It's mad how everything's gone like that.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to somebody the other week we were just talking about the price of tickets. There's a guy who worked at a venue and he was saying people don't understand that the ticket prices have gone up, not because of fat cats saying like that, it's because the cost of touring has gone up. Like he was speaking to a truck driver who was driving a truck for a tour, and he said, how much do you think it costs to fill my truck, like with petrol? 1,800 quid, 2 tanks. So that's 1,800 quid for one truck. Then you've got the price of however much the driver's wages are, and then you've got another 3 trucks or another 4 trucks. It's like, well, obviously you're going to have to address that by the ticket price, otherwise bands are going to be touring at a loss.
Even when Noel went on tour with Garbage last year, and it was like a joint tour because of the cost. As well, I need to ask you about your meeting with Noel for the first time as well, because obviously the Richard Ashcroft meeting was a chance happening. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you're in a building that's also been used by the Inspiral Carpets.
Yeah, amongst others, yeah.
Well, one of the others, believe it or not, and I'm sure you know this, was the scene for that Nevermind the Pollux NME front cover with the Stone Roses.
Oh, right.
With the paint. And apparently some of the paint, that was in there. That was in that building. So there's a hive of creativity in there.
There was, yeah.
And you meet Noel.
I'll tell you who else was in there as well. Terry Christian's missus had an office in there.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Red Alert, there with the
promo. You always get your promo CDs.
So is that why Noel was always badgering her to get on the word?
Yeah, because there's, you know, it was a very incestuous scene in Manchester back then. Because Manchester's like a big town as opposed to a city. You know, big. Yeah, it's more like Glasgow. Everybody who's involved in the music. There's a few, in any given scene like that, there's a maximum 200 heads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know everybody in Glasgow. You know, it's the same in Manchester back then. And a lot of those people were centred in that one building. I mean, I just happened to be there because it was cheap. You know, as a designer, my studio was a dungeon, effectively. It was the cheapest room that he had. He was in the basement and didn't have any windows in it.
It's a bit like this place.
But, you know, and so I got a cheap room in there, and I'd come across this guy. I mean, the legendary stories we got talking in the lift about trainers. I mean, I'm sure that did happen, but... You know, I just see him knocking about the building. And back then, I'll tell you what's funny, actually, because this is obviously pre-Oasis, but grunge was at the fore then. And dressing like an ex-footballer again wasn't really a thing, you know. So people who were walking around in Adidas... People find this hard to believe now, you know. There's far and few between these people who are into that kind of fashion stuff. And I had these Adidas trainers on that I'd bought in Florence. I took my mother to Rome for her 60th birthday. And whilst there, we decided to go to Florence to go to the Uffizi Gallery. And whilst in Florence, I found this backstreet shop that had these trainers in. It's not like now where you buy a pair of Adidas trainers. They're the same all over the world, aren't they? Whereas then, there'd be different shoes in different territories.
If you tell me they're Pantofoladoros,
it was Indoor Super.
Oh, right.
But before they came out over here.
They're all
in colour.
And so I bought them, and I was wearing them in this lift in Manchester. The first conversation we ever had was Noel saying to me, I didn't know who it was, obviously. You know, he wasn't famous or anything. Where the f*** are you getting trainers from? and people, somebody said to me, and this is another thing that gives it away, people are these Adidas obsessives, which is fine. Oh, you know, can you imagine if you'd been wearing Nikes? So he was wearing Nikes that day, you know what I mean? Because back in the day, they were just as cool anyway. And he was wearing some Nikes that caught my eye that he'd bought in Argentina when over there with the Inspirals. Right. So you see what I mean? It's stuff that you just couldn't get in this country. So that's how we got chatting initially, a mutual love of trainers. Then he asked me what I did, and, you know, at that point I'd done some very early singles for the Verve, or Verve as they were known then, which he'd seen. And his comment was, "Oh wow, they're good. I know them. They're good. When we get signed, I want you to do our artwork." And that's how it started. And then I remember him literally coming into my studio with Mark Coyle the day after, or the day or two after the Tuts gig, saying, "No, we've been signed. It's on. It's happening."
Brian, can I just ask about the sleeves, right? And I didn't notice these things until you pointed it out, and you thought everybody back in the day would know all this, but obviously there was no internet, nothing, but there's wee hidden bits. So I'm going to concentrate on Oasis, but in Roll With It, there's a bottle of water under between Liam. On Be Here Now in the grass in front of Liam, there's a cigarette butt. And then recently I found out, only like within a few weeks ago, on the spine of Cigarettes and Alcohol, it says, "Dedicated to the King of Sleaze." Do you know who that is? Who is the King of Sleaze? And I've never seen that before.
I don't know. I mean, I can only presume, because Tim Abbott's on the front cover, it could mean Tim Abbott, but I don't know. Right. I don't know, even though I put it on there.
I knew about the fagged out.
Aye. But I didn't know about that until you...
I only spotted it myself.
Yeah.
And now I can't just not see it.
Well, that's it. So I can't unsee the cigarette butt. I can't unsee the bottle of water.
Yeah,
So
I already noticed the bottle of water recently as well. Yeah.
Is there any others?
Oh, there's loads of stuff, but all the rest I put there. I mean, I didn't put that cigarette there, I just noticed
No,
that.
I know that, aye.
But everything else I kind of placed there, so I know it's there from the off. But
Is there a name for that when you put something like, you know, like...
Easter egg.
I'll tell you, there's one thing that nobody ever sees this. If you look at the cover, as some might say, if you might want to drop
That's
this,
another one.
the windows on
Aye.
the railway station, which were all boarded up because it's disused, I photographed bits of Noel's guitars and photocopied them and blew them up. And so you'll have, like, in one of the windows you can see it's the machine head off of his Gibson, and the others it's his volume control. There's pictures of his guitars in all the windows.
Attention to detail.
Well, that's it. And again, I didn't know this until you told me.
Yeah.
And that was why...
And I was sticking them down the morning of the shoot.
Aye.
Onto bits of board to put in the windows. But yeah, next time you look at it, have a look at that.
And that was why I wanted to do the gigs week, because you were telling me this stuff, and I'm like, Brian, nobody knows this.
I know.
But you automatically thought everybody knows this. But back in the day, there was no internet, nothing.
See, when you're doing, in terms of the actual seams, are you conscious of the fact that, right, Bonehead's front room is going to become an iconic seam for the rest of the time, or that alleyway on, do you know what I mean? Or,
well, you've got to bear in mind that when we did that day there, they hadn't had a record out. Or, no, they had actually. It was May we shot that, wasn't it? But, it's so early on in the day that nobody... I mean, I thought they were amazing and I thought they deserved to be massive, but the music industry is the most fickle industry going. Quality's no guarantee of success.
Oh, there's so many bands that doing this archive with the Touch thing, going back through and being like, oh, I remember that band, they were Pure Essence. What a band.
Oh, brilliant. Did a video with them.
Did you?
Yeah, Walking Dead, I shot that.
Oh, I love that song. Yeah. Aye.
So I had, even though I thought they were great, we had no idea how far it was going to go. But I never sort of try again, second guess anything. Everything's just done specifically for that shoot.
How come? So the UK CD was just the blue, but the American one had the windows in it. Why?
I didn't do that. That was done in the States, and for once they actually did a great job.
I was going to say that's actually
that's like something we would have done.
Yeah,
but no, I didn't know anything about that.
So, JP, we've been speaking in the past about your pal Michael Taggart and the fact that he had this flag and he took it everywhere with him for about 30 years, and unfortunately we got news back from the Glasgow Derby game that it was nabbed. We have an update. Talk us through it.
We do have an update. Here it is.
And it wasn't JP that nabbed it.
No, handed into King Tut's Wawa last night by a Rangers fan who came across it outside his gate, outside his house, and got in touch with Michael via Facebook, and then basically said, I've got your flag, and brought it back. So it's an absolute miracle that he's got it back, but just shows you it's not all bad in the world.
Can I just say, JP, we have wee flag digs here and there. You've got to, because I mean we take a lot of abuse ourselves online. But there was a wee handwritten note, and it was basically, here's your flag back, Mon the Gers.
Aye, Mon the Gers, lol.
Fairly.
Maybe he was making reference to the fact that they need all the help they can get. But no, it was very, very much appreciated, and I've been on many of those European journeys where this has touched base in Valencia or Madrid or wherever it's been, and he's had it further afield than that. He's had it in Russia and Zenit St Petersburg, and Michael goes, if Celtic were playing on the moon, Michael would be looking for a ticket, so
he'd be there with the flag. Brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. I mean, one last point on the game that you enjoyed at the weekend, Brian. What did you think of the Green Brigade?
Oh, it was amazing. What do you call those? Just the banner. It was St Mungo.
Tifo,
yeah. That was pretty. I tried taking a picture of it, but you just can't get the scale of it. You just had to be there. Just the size of the thing. I mean, who makes them? I mean, how do they get it in the ground?
They did a video once of the preparation behind it.
I've done it.
Yeah. And it's unbelievable.
Celtic went them into the stadium, and in the sort of area where the cafes are and stuff like that. They've got that big space to sort of stretch it out, like the length of the ground or whatever, the length of a stand. So
the logistics into working out how big it would be in respect to the size of the place it was filmed was just perfect. It was incredible.
Yeah, totally. What the work they do and the fundraising they need to go through to actually get the thing produced, and then to actually synchronise it so that it works.
Yeah,
they're absolutely up there amongst the top in Europe. I mean, there's some cracking ultras out there and tifos, but the Green Brigade are up there as far as I'm concerned. Raymond, we're talking about connections. Brian brought us all together.
Brian brought us all together. It was thanks to Brian, and also I always get this wrong, right? So, but it was all comes to Noel. So it was thanks to Noel. You introduced the Verve to Noel, and that's how obviously they toured together. And then, but it was thanks to Noel introduced yourself to Inspiral Carpets, and that's how you get to do the artwork for Inspiral Carpets. So Brian's always it's all about connections, and it's always meets who. And
it's nice to be nice, isn't it? And what goes around comes around, and all the other cliches you want to think of. But I look at it, treat others as you would have them treat you. It really is as simple as that, isn't it? If you're going to be a bad man, nothing's good's going to come of it. So and especially if you're doing something that's cool and interesting and you're passionate about and you're surrounded by passionate people, things are going to be good out there.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to meet you all.
Yeah, without a doubt. And what about the future of Microdot? Because obviously Oasis come back, and in my lifetime I've got to say, did I think it would happen? Probably not. Did I think the Roses would get back together? No chance. So I've lived through that, which is brilliant for me as a fan, as an absolute geek for both of those bands. But I mean, Microdot was already doing really, really well. I love the store. I've got some pieces in my studio, but it must have really reignited the interest in Oasis stuff.
Oh yeah, it's gone nuts, to be honest. Which is fantastic, but it just means we can't do anything else for a while because we're a dead small team. There's only 3 of us at the Kendall HQ, so at the minute we're all just full hands on. We've just moved into a new place, and we should be open to the public there, but we've not been able to because we're just a bit swamped by orders online. But the long-term vision is, or always was, to be honest, to develop our own brand, be that, again, as wide a field as possible without, trying to narrow it down to clothing, art and accessories, whatever that might be. Microdot branded stuff, which will basically sell to a fan base of ours, which is based on the work that we did for the band. So that's the basic strategy. And but at the minute, it's full on with Oasis because obviously, this is new work. This is something I've done this year. So, and this image and that image, I do have permission from Oasis to do an edition of 100 of each, which we're going to do some spectacular versions of that without the text on it. Right, I'm talking like 4 foot by 4 foot, as a limited edition of 10 probably. So that's obviously topical at the minute, and that's what we're on with at the minute. But I've got loads of other ideas for taking on with that. You mentioned that T-shirt we did with my dad's, but that's going to become a series. The next one being a picture of the first camera that I ever had, which I've still got, and then just documenting the history of my creative life, basically, and taking it forward, just doing more of our own stuff. That's the plan.
I love it. And even like the hub, when I popped into Kendall, I was driving past it. We were going to do an interview, and I says to my mate at JP, I goes, you know what we should do? Go in and see Microdot. You never know who's going to be kicking about. I says to him, you never know, Richard Ashcroft might be in for a cup of tea. And we went in, and lo and behold, Tony McCarroll's standing, chin wagging with Brian.
Amazing.
It was unbelievable.
By the way,
it's such a great vibe with Brian.
Same thing. The old shop. I came down to see the old shop, and we were actually talking about Tony, and you're like, there's Tony there. And I'm like, well, he just walked by the window and came in. I was like, no way, Tony.
It's like, you hit the nail on the head though. It's all about the vibe, isn't it? You know, it's like when we go to work, me, Jill and Lee work together, you know, we joke with each other every day, saying like, you know, imagine having to go to work, you know, it's just us three having the crack. And man, we all work super hard, and especially at the minute because we're mad busy, but I'm dead calm about it because, you know, we're not carrying any dead weight. Everybody's super passionate and he's bang on the button with it all. And it's just a joy to go to work, it really is. So I'm dead lucky in that respect.
Yeah. You used to have, so kind of weirdly, the guy that managed the Twilight Sad before myself and Ray worked for you.
Who's that?
Lee Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
And he's always,
back in the day.
anytime I post anything about Oasis, Lee comments and says, oh, did you drain the swimming pool for the Be Here Now photo shoot? I'm like, no, obviously not, because I was 17 and I was at high school. But
I mean, him.
I know he did, but I was like, yeah, I worked about that time. Yeah.
Everybody who's worked with us at Microdot, I guarantee, without exception, says it's the best job they ever had.
Oh no,
it's the best crack they've ever had.
Aye.
And it still is, because, you know, it's just us lot having a crack.
Those 3 gigs we done, best time. It was the best.
It's not like going to work.
I loved it.
You know, I'm of the opinion, you spend more time at work than you do doing anything else apart from being in bed. So you might as well do something you like.
Aye.
Yeah. That's I didn't even know that was my motto, but it is.
No, you're right. Every time I speak to you on Thursday after the show finishes, JPS, you're right, who are you going to work with tonight? You know, and you're buzzing about it. And it could be an unsigned band or somebody who's world renowned.
Great guy last night in touch, a guy called Nourished by Time, from Baltimore. Kind of like producer, hip hop, but a bit of kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but maybe a wee bit like Ghost Poet, if you remember that guy.
Yeah, I photographed him once.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, well, kind of like that vibe, but very, very good. And didn't sell out, it was 30 short of a sellout, but Oasis only had 30 people there when they played, so.
But the amount of people you speak to who were at that gig, though, I think about 300 people were at that gig.
Well, when Liam came to do the Come Back to Me shoot, when he did the single with Shane Meadows, he walked on stage, obviously first time on the touch stage since 93, and he was just like, how many of you lot were here last time? It was like the scene of the crime. The scene of the crime.
Absolutely tremendous. It's great to have you back in Glasgow. Brian, hopefully we'll see you at Celtic Park again soon. So, thanks for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Brian.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Brian.
Nice one.
Thanks for joining us once again on A Celtic State of Mind. Join us next Friday night, for this is A Celtic State of Mind.